The frantic voice on the 911 recording would later become evidence in my favor. "Someone has changed the locks on community property," she shrieked into her phone while standing on my front porch. "I demand you send officers immediately." But what HOA President Linda Garrison didn't know was that I was listening from my window, and I had a very different call to make, one that would turn her power trip into her worst nightmare. I had purchased the old Henderson place just 3 weeks earlier. It sat on Maple Ridge Drive, right at the edge of where the Sunset Meadows HOA territory ended. The previous owner had lost it to foreclosure, and I'd gotten a great deal on the property precisely because it needed extensive renovations. What I hadn't anticipated was Linda Garrison showing up on my doorstep that Tuesday morning, holding what looked like an old brass key. "Excuse me," she said in a tone that suggested she was used to being obeyed without question. "I'm here for the monthly inspection." She wore a navy blazer with an HOA president pin that looked like it had been polished that morning. Her perfectly styled blonde hair didn't move in the breeze, and her smile was the kind that never reached her eyes. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," I replied calmly, setting down my paint roller. "This is private property. I just bought it 3 weeks ago." Her smile faltered for just a moment before returning with twice the intensity. "Young man, this house is part of the Sunset Meadows HOA. We have inspection rights to all properties within our jurisdiction." She held up the key like it was some kind of royal scepter. "This master key gives me access to every home in our community." I maintained my professional demeanor, though I could feel a hint of amusement creeping in. "Ma'am, I have all my closing documents inside. This property sits outside your HOA boundaries. The survey clearly shows." "I don't need to see any documents," she interrupted with a wave of her manicured hand. "I've been HOA president for 8 years. I know every property under our authority." She stepped forward, key extended toward my lock. "Now, if you'll excuse me." "Ma'am, please step back," I said firmly but politely. "This is private property, and you don't have permission to enter." Her face flushed red, clashing with her coral lipstick. "How dare you speak to me that way? Do you have any idea who I am?" "Linda Garrison, HOA president," I replied evenly. "But that doesn't give you authority over my property." She jabbed her finger toward me, her voice rising to a pitch that probably scared her fellow board members. "You'll be hearing from our legal team. Nobody defies the HOA." With that, she spun on her designer heels and marched back to her white Lexus, slamming the door hard enough to make her HOA parking decal flutter. I thought that would be the end of it. I went back to painting my living room, enjoying the peace of homeownership outside the reach of petty HOA politics. But I should have known better. People like Linda don't give up their perceived power easily. It was just after lunch when I heard the commotion outside. Through my front window, I spotted Linda's white Lexus parked at my curb again. She stood at my front door, frantically jamming that brass key into my lock and twisting it with increasing desperation. Her face had progressed from red to purple, and she was muttering something I couldn't quite make out. I opened the door before she could damage my lock. "Can I help you with something, Mrs. Garrison?" She jumped back, clutching her chest dramatically. "You changed the locks," she accused with the indignation of someone who'd caught me committing a federal crime. "That's against HOA bylaws. You can't change locks without board approval." "Mrs. Garrison, as I explained earlier, this property isn't part of your HOA. But even if it were, these are the same locks that were here when I bought the place." Her eyes narrowed to slits. "You're lying. This key has opened this door for years. The previous owner understood the rules. He gave us access for inspections." "The previous owner lost this house to the bank," I reminded her patiently. "Whatever arrangement you think you had ended with the foreclosure." That's when she pulled out her phone. "Fine. If you want to play games, we'll do this the hard way." She dialed 911 with theatrical flair, shooting me a triumphant look. "Yes, hello? I need police here immediately. There's a squatter in one of our HOA properties. He's changed the locks and is refusing to leave." I couldn't help but shake my head at the audacity. She provided my address with the confidence of someone who truly believed their own lies. Yes, I'm the HOA president. I have full authority over this property. Please hurry, he seems unstable. As she continued her dramatic performance for the dispatcher, I quietly stepped back inside my house. If she wanted to play the emergency services card, two could play that game. But I had an advantage she didn't know about. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I knew by heart. After 2 rings, a familiar voice answered. County Dispatch, Sarah speaking. Hey Sarah, it's David Morrison, I said calmly. I think we might have a situation developing at my new place on Maple Ridge. Sarah Martinez had been one of my closest friends since high school. She'd started as a dispatcher 5 years ago and had quickly become one of the best in the county. David, I heard you bought a place out there. What's going on? I've got an HOA president standing on my porch claiming I'm squatting in my own home. I believe she just called 911 making a false report. Linda Garrison? Sarah asked with a knowing tone. White Lexus, blonde hair that defies gravity. That's the one, I confirmed. She seems to think her HOA controls my property, but I've got all my documents showing it's outside their jurisdiction. Parcel number 472-8916. I heard rapid typing on her end. Let me pull that up. Okay, I see it. You're right, that property sits outside the Sunset Meadows HOA boundaries. Actually, it looks like it's never been part of any HOA. That's what I tried to tell her, but she's insisting she has some master key that gives her access to my home. Sarah's tone turned professional but with an edge of concern. David, I'm showing a call coming in right now from your address. She's claiming you're a squatter and that she has HOA authority over the property. The responding units are already en route. I figured as much, I said, glancing out the window where Linda was now pacing back and forth, gesticulating wildly as she spoke into her phone. I've got my closing documents, the deed, and the survey right here. Everything's in order. Good. I'm updating the call notes now with the correct information. Officers Johnson and Pike are responding. I'll make sure they have the full picture before they arrive. She paused, then added in a more personal tone, She's really claiming you're squatting in a house you bought 3 weeks ago? Apparently her magic HOA key not working is proof of my criminal activity, I said dryly. She tried it this morning. I told her the property wasn't under HOA control, and now she's back making false reports. Okay, I flagged this as a potential false report and trespassing situation. The officers will have all the background. Just stay calm and have your documents ready. Thanks, Sarah. I appreciate it. No problem. And David, maybe invest in some security cameras. Something tells me this won't be her last visit. As I ended the call, I saw Linda had finished her own conversation. She stood at the end of my driveway with her arms crossed, a smug smile playing on her lips. She clearly expected to watch me hauled away in handcuffs. I gathered my closing documents, deed, and survey from my filing cabinet and waited on my front porch. Within 10 minutes, 2 police cruisers pulled up to my house. Linda immediately rushed toward them, her arms waving frantically. Officers! Thank goodness you're here. That man, she pointed at me with the dramatic flair of a soap opera actress, is trespassing on HOA property. But instead of rushing to confront me, Officer Johnson and Officer Pike walked right past her. Mr. Morrison? Officer Johnson called out as he approached my porch. That's me, I confirmed, holding up my documents. I appreciate you coming out. Linda's jaw dropped. Wait, what? Why are you talking to him? He's the squatter. Officer Pike turned to her with professional patience. Ma'am, we need you to step back while we sort this out. But I'm the one who called, she sputtered with increasing desperation. I'm Linda Garrison, HOA president. We're aware of who you are, Mrs. Garrison, Officer Johnson said evenly. Now please, step back. I handed my documents to Officer Johnson, who reviewed them carefully. Mr. Morrison, can you tell us what happened here? I explained the morning's encounter and her return visit, keeping my tone factual and calm. She seems to believe her HOA has authority over my property, but as you can see from the survey, this parcel sits outside their boundaries. Officer Johnson nodded, studying the survey. This is pretty clear. Your property line ends here, he pointed to the marking, and the HOA jurisdiction begins approximately 50 feet down the road. That's impossible, Linda interjected, unable to contain herself. I have a master key. The previous owner gave us access. Officer Pike turned to her. Mrs. Garrison, do you have any documentation showing HOA authority over this specific address? I don't need documentation. I've been president for 8 years. I know every house in our community. But do you have any legal documents? Officer Pike pressed. Bylaws mentioning this address? An agreement with the previous owner. Linda's face cycled through several shades of red. The key is proof enough. Why would I have a key if we didn't have authority? Mrs. Garrison, Officer Johnson said slowly, having a key to someone's property doesn't give you legal right to enter. Do you have permission from Mr. Morrison to be on his property? I don't need his permission, she shrieked with a volume that made both officers take a small step back. This is HOA property. Officer Johnson handed my documents back to me and turned fully to face Linda. Ma'am, I need you to listen very carefully. According to all legal documentation, this property is not under HOA jurisdiction. You've been asked to leave by the rightful owner. You're currently trespassing. Furthermore, Officer Pike added with a stern tone, you made a false 911 report claiming Mr. Morrison was a squatter. That's misuse of emergency services. The color drained from Linda's face as the reality of her situation began to sink in. But I'm the HOA president, she said weakly, as if the title was a magic shield. That doesn't give you authority over properties outside your jurisdiction, Officer Johnson explained. Now, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. You can leave now and receive a formal warning, or we can arrest you for trespassing and filing a false report. Linda's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. This is ridiculous. I'll have your badges for this. Do you know how much influence I have in this community? Ma'am, that sounds like a threat against law enforcement officers, Officer Pike noted, his hand moving subtly toward his citation book. I strongly advise you to leave the property immediately. With shaking hands, Linda clutched her useless brass key. This isn't over, she hissed at me. The HOA has lawyers. We'll prove this property belongs under our authority. You're welcome to try, I said calmly. But for now, you need to leave my property and not return without my permission. Officer Johnson escorted her to her Lexus while Officer Pike filled out a formal trespassing warning. Mr. Morrison, if she returns, call us immediately. We'll have this on file. As Linda drove away, her tires squealing dramatically, I thanked the officers. I appreciate your professionalism. No problem, Officer Johnson said with a slight smile. Between you and me, we've had several calls about Mrs. Garrison over the years. She seems to think being HOA president makes her the sheriff of the neighborhood. After they left, I stood on my porch for a moment, enjoying the peace. I locked my door with my own key, the only key that would ever open it without my permission. 3 days later, an official letter arrived from the Sunset Meadows HOA. But instead of the threatening legal action Linda had promised, it was a terse acknowledgement that, upon further review of property records, the board confirms that 472-8916 Maple Ridge Drive falls outside HOA boundaries. I had the letter professionally framed and hung it right beside my front door, a permanent reminder that sometimes the best response to a power trip is simple truth backed by proper documentation. The real consequences for Linda came at the next HOA meeting. Word of her 911 debacle had spread through the neighborhood faster than drought gossip at a garden club. When she tried to call the meeting to order, homeowner after homeowner stood up demanding explanations. How many other properties had she falsely claimed authority over? How many times had she used that so-called master key? The final vote was unanimous. Linda Garrison was removed from her position as HOA president, effective immediately. She sat frozen in her chair as the results were announced, her mouth opening and closing wordlessly while her carefully constructed kingdom crumbled around her. But the worst was yet to come. The HOA board voted to audit her activities, and what they found led to a $15,000 fine for misuse of HOA funds and multiple violations of state property laws. As the judge read the verdict 6 months later, ordering her to pay full restitution plus legal fees, Linda's face crumpled like tissue paper in the rain.